The Sound of the Dragon. Once upon a time, a great dragon had been born into the world. It was a time when dragons were not seen anywhere else. If you pack up your bags, set your maps, and make your way to that world, you will find that their world is filled with many, many bizarre things, but you wouldn't find a dragon anywhere. There would be many pigeons, swans, ducks, and crows. There would be doves, cuckoos, and sparrows. Many land animals like bulls, horses, and donkeys would be there as well. Likewise, you'll find men and women and many, many types of beings, but you won't be able to find a dragon there. Thus, when this dragon was found by a great king called Drodo, he was very delighted. He instructed his ministers to prepare a great feast in honor of the dragon's birth, and many kings from all over the world were invited there. It was a glorious festival, one that had many dragon-themed events in them, and when that period of zest was finished, everyone went back to their homes in high spirits. But the dragon itself was miserable. You see, in that world, everyone had understood their place and role. They knew what they had to do. The cat knew that it was a cat and it behaved like a cat, and the tiger too behaved like a tiger. It is true that he did create a lot of terror in those who had to encounter his ferocious being, but he always played his part and never stopped being ferocious. Likewise, all other beings were always themselves. They never had to pretend to be like someone else. They never had to figure out who they were or what they had to become. They were born in the world with the qualities of their beings, and they expressed those qualities with supreme sovereignty. They did not put up a facade to hide their true feelings and express themselves completely with as much freedom as possible. Thus, they enjoyed a very blissful and enthusiastic existence. This was not the case with the dragon. The dragon was born in a world that had forgotten about it. He was an alien in that world, and there was no place for him in that society. Everywhere he went, beings became conscious of him, and they stopped their activities just to see what he would do. He never felt like he could belong to them and always felt disconnected from the world, as if the world was not his home, as if he had been put into a place that really could not contain him. Thus he was always miserable. He tried really hard to fit in with everyone, though. Sometimes he would pretend to be like a lion, for he had seen that lions were strong and fierce, and he too sometimes felt like that. So he would try to puff out a very loud roar and bellow his lungs with as much power as he could. But no matter how hard he tried, he could never become like the lion. In fact, one time he tried so hard that he actually ended up releasing fire from the pit of his belly, and that day the entire marketplace was burned. He had felt really embarrassed and ashamed of what he had done, and thus he stopped trying to imitate. This went on for a very, very long time. Ultimately, the situation became so bad that the dragon actually ended up becoming an outcast. Once the pride and glory of the very king, now even rats and insects refused to be around him. He was alone, always alone, and still could not figure out what to do. He still did not know how to fit into the world. He still did not know how to behave. One day, when he had gotten very drunk and was slumbering around some cave, he looked into the pond, and there he saw something that made him blink his eyes twice. He saw, in the mirror-like surface of the pond, a vision of a dragoness who had long eyelashes, and this dragoness spoke to the dragon. She said, "How long will you try to live like someone who you are not? How long are you going to keep that mask on? Why do you hide your true self from the world? Worse than that, why do you hide your original being from yourself? Do you know, in dragon law, it is all right to lie to other beings, but it is a great sin to lie to one's own self. Stop pretending to be who you are not. Stop trying to fit into the society that won't accept you. You are the one of your kind, O dragon. Just embrace that fact and accept yourself. If you don't accept yourself, then how will anyone else accept you? Let's forget all this useless facade and embrace yourself, O dear dragon. You're not a tiger or a wolf or a serpent. You are the dragon, so behave like the dragon. The strong speech of the beautiful dragoness had resonated such a strong harmony of vibrations in his mind that it became fully alert and alive. His senses became razor-sharp, and his body found such a thrilling sensation of current running in it that he actually lifted up his great head and let out a terrible, terrible dragon roar. The very earth shook from that primal sound, and the cosmic shout of the great dragon echoed in the hills and resonated in the valleys. Those who were playing on the forest floor were shocked and horrified, and they ended up running into the caves. Birds flew away from branches, and even the lions decided to pick a place to hide, something that they hadn't done in ages. Then the great dragon leapt up in the air, unleashed its wing, and flew so high up in the sky that even the falcons and eagles were ashamed to fly that day. The big terrible form of the Lord of Reptiles soared across the canvas of the sky, and against the shining moon it looked like a god was traversing on his cosmic chariot. The dragon roared and bellowed and screamed so loudly that the very earth was terrified. All other beings who, in the absence of the dragon, had been bossing around the world finally fell back to their original place. They bowed to the dragon, gave him offerings, respected him, and saluted him, and were so afraid of him that they hired more than a dozen priests, who mounted great dragoness altars just to keep the dragon satisfied, though the dragon never bothered them and minded his own business. And even to this day, if you go to that land and hear the roar of the beast and ask to whom that sound belongs, they would look at you with big wide eyes and say, "Why, everyone knows that sound. It's the sound of the dragon." The end.